feet on the water.
Y'all know what's going on. It's time for another episode of Doing Time with Joe. I'm your host, Joe Becker, and welcome to the show. This is the part 2 of Cartel Business. I want you to understand something, right? It was not a decision that Hector made lightly to join the cartel, right? Because you got to remember that his wife was killed in a shootout between the cartels. And he's not even sure if the cartel that helped bring him and Miguel to the United States is not the cartel that's responsible for killing his wife. He's not sure of any of that yet. That might show his head later on. But right now, he doesn't even realize that. He doesn't even realize what's going on with the cartel that he's about to do business with. But he's seeing that the financial opportunities in America are there. But he also sees how the cartel is taking advantage of the people that they bring to this country. So he decides, for the sake of him and his son, and I want you to keep this in mind. He decides, for the sake of him and his son, if you can't beat him, join him. Because you got to remember, he's not here legally, so he doesn't have the paperwork to protect himself. Even though he's working this job in the fields, he's dipping and dodging. You know what I'm saying? They have to listen to me. One of the things that happen when you have a lot of migrants on these particular jobs, and no matter where they're at, ICE raids these jobs, and then they have to scatter and run, trying to get away from all of the situations. So they're hiding during the day. Yeah, you might see them riding up and down the streets in cars, this and the third, right? They're trying to blend in. But at any time, if they get stopped and they get pulled over, whatever the case may be, and they can't produce paperwork, they're hit. So Hector was hiding most of the time during the day, even when he was at work, worrying about his son Miguel, hoping and praying that nothing happened to him while he was at work, and hoping and praying that nothing happened to him while Miguel was at the house waiting on his father to come home. Miguel is at the house, not going to school, not doing any of that, because he's afraid that something could happen and then they could get separated. So until he gets situated, until he could separate himself from the cartel, he thought it just best that they lay low. But now he has to make a decision that he's not proud to make, but it is what it is. And sometimes when you get put in situations like that, you do what you think is necessary in that moment, good or bad. And that's what he was doing. So he goes and he introduces himself to the cartels in a way that he hadn't before, because before, he's totally shunned what they were trying to get him to do, because he knew that it was going to involve illegal activity. He knew that, and he didn't want to do that. He had never done anything like this before. So when he went to the guy that was over the house that him and Miguel was staying in, he told him, he said, "How can I make more money?" And this guy wasn't new. He deals with, the migrants all day, every day, that they get frustrated with the situation that they're in. And partly, let me explain this to you, partly that is the way the setup is. They put these migrants in these situations to where the cartels do, to where they might be able to make it, but it's not going to be easy. And they're hoping that it frustrates them and it turns them towards them. You feel me? Yeah, of course, they can force them to do it, but you want somebody to work for you that is willing. You understand? It's different when you have somebody that is willing to do the work versus somebody that's being forced to do the work. So they create the situation, they created an environment to where the people that they supposedly helped to get to America would grow frustrated with the process and then turn to them of their own free will, so to speak, quote unquote, and do the things that they wanted them to do in the first place, which is get involved in their illegal businesses. So when Hector was talking to one of the cartel members about doing something to make more money, he told him, he said, he said, "We'll talk about this tomorrow." He said, "But what is it that you think we do?" And Hector looked at him, he told him, "Drugs." And he said, "Yeah, but that's not all we do. That's not all we do." The cartel member was boasting proudly about the human trafficking, the drugs, the extortion, all of those different things that they do. But the cartel member, he told him, he said, we got something special for you. We got something that we think you're going to like. Because they liked the fact, they had heard about Hector and how he managed the warehouse. He was the manager over all of those people. And again, like I said, those people were already, a lot of those people were already familiar with him. So they trusted him. So they were going to take advantage of that and put him in a position where he would be over them at the house. So that next day, the cartel member told him, he said, you're going to take my place and you're going to run this house and 2 other houses in the neighborhood. And what you got to do, you got to make sure they get to work every day. You got to make sure you got food in the refrigerator. And you got to make sure that they got somewhere to sleep. And what does that mean when I say somewhere to sleep, right? Here's the thing. They slept in shifts. The same mats that were in the house were used by everybody. Like the people that would be at work, the mat that they slept on that night, somebody else slept on that mat while they were at work. And that's how that worked. Now the women and children, the smaller children, they let them have the bedroom. And they slept in a bed. So that was a little better. But the men and Miguel, the young boys, they slept on cots, mats that were lined up in the living room. These houses were like warehouses, but it was like a regular house in a residential area. And from the outside, unassuming, you wouldn't even think that. Yeah, you see all the traffic and all of the people running in and out, but it was a house and it would be full of migrants. And Hector said it was constantly moving in and out. So they had put him in charge of 3 houses. And he was going to make a nice piece of change. He told me the money was great. But he had gotten used to moving people in and out and meeting all these new people. And he said before he knew it, he found himself convincing them that this was good for them. And he said it ate away at him. It ate away at his soul, made him feel dirty. Because he was convincing them that being taken advantage of was better than the situation that they dealt with back in their countries. And don't forget, some of these people came from other places like Honduras. They came from Honduras, El Salvador, Guatemala, Mexico. You understand what I'm saying? They had people from all over. And their situations were bad, but they wasn't slaves. But now they were being treated as slaves, right? And he became part of that machine. And he said after a while, he didn't feel dirty anymore. But he would notice how his son would watch him and how his son had started to emulate the same behavior. He would yell at the other young kids at the houses and stuff like that as if he was in charge because his dad was in charge. And his daddy saw that it was affecting the way he interacted. And it made him feel bad at first, but he said after a while, it just became what it was. So after about that first year, he said he could not continue to let Miguel not go to school. So he got with the cartel leaders in that area, and they had arranged through some of the people that worked at the school for Miguel and a lot of the other kids to be enrolled in school. So I said, how did they do that? He said, well, if kids are in the area and they enroll in school, you got to have your cards and Social Security number. So the cartel charged the people that they brought over here to help get these fake Social Security cards, fake IDs, fake driver's license. They had all of this stuff. And then they got them these jobs that with fake IDs. And even though the employers, they knew that they were migrants, not here legally, they hired them anyway. And they didn't do all the checks and balances that you're supposed to do to make sure that somebody that's working here is straight, legal, and with a proper Social Security number, because that has a lot of tax implications. They didn't care. They just wanted to labor. And it was cheaper than what they would have to pay somebody that was not a migrant. They got them these driver's licenses. You feel me? Without them having to even take the test. But they knew how to drive. They would help him get a car. And all of the while, all of these things that they're helping him get, guess what? The cartel is getting a little bit of the money that they're making it work for all of this stuff. None of this stuff was free. And that's the business. And that's the business. And now Hector was getting a piece of that. And he was saving his money. He's putting it up. He's putting it up. Because his whole plan is to eventually cut all of this loose. Naive as he is. A lot of people that get involved in criminal activities are, listen to me, naive, and Hector was one of them. Naive as you could be. He thought once he got the money that he needed, he could just walk away from this. Boy, was he in for a rude awakening. So anyway, now everything in his mind is set up. Miguel is in school. He's working. He's watching these 3 houses. Now the cartel comes back to him, and they tell him they want him to watch a few more houses across the county line. But here's the trick. These houses here, these houses were not people that were going to work in the fields and going to do all working in factories and stuff like that. These houses were of young women. These houses were of young women that were working adult work, let's say. They were doing adult work, okay? And they needed him to make sure that the men that were going in and out of these rooms were not hurting the women, beating them and stuff like that, unless that's what they paid for. This is what he told me, unless that's what they paid for. And some of them paid for that. And a lot of these girls were younger. They were younger ones. But it didn't matter because he had convinced himself that I need to do what I need to do for me and Miguel. So now he's managing, you know what I'm saying, that part of it, you know what I'm saying, the adult work, and he's making more money, he's putting more money up, and the people that are over him, they're seeing him as a real deal partner in the business. And now he's starting to feel like, you know, I'm doing better. And he's got quite a bit of money saved up. Not a lot like that. Not a lot to the point to where he can just, you know what I'm saying, walk away and he's rich. He's by no means rich, but it's more money than he's ever had in his life. That's what he said to me. So now he's looking around. He's trying to find a way to buy a house. But keep in mind, nothing about his life is legal. He said nothing about his life was legal. So again, he finds somebody that was from Latin America, that from one of the countries that he was from, and he finds one of them that was here legally. You understand, that had been living in America, that had a real estate company. So he said he went to them and he told them that he wanted to buy a house. But he wanted to buy a house in a totally separate neighborhood than the neighborhood that he was in managing houses, and the one that was across, you know what I'm saying, the county line, and the other houses that he was managing. So they looked around for, and they found him a nice place. But it was way out of his price range. But he told them that he had put so much down, and that when he gets to the amount that it was straight, could they work with him? And they said, yeah, they could work with him. Because they were also connected to the cartels. So they would go out of their way to try to help anybody that needed help, trying to build them a better life, especially if they were for and with the cartels. So now Hector's he's taking advantage of the position that he's in. He sees that the cartel has a lot of influence, and a lot of people are willing to help the cartels because, let me tell you something, they make a lot of money. They make a lot of money. And people are mostly influenced by that. They're influenced by the money. So now Hector, he's really trying to put in work now, and he goes back to the cartel, and he's talking one day where they were discussing the books, and he tells them he wants to make a little bit more money. And they're with all that. So now they get him into the gambling aspect of the business. They get him into the gambling, so they're taking bets and all this. So now they got Hector taking bets on sporting games, especially soccer. They got him running a house for workers, and they got him running a couple of houses for adult work, so to speak. You know what I'm talking about, with them young girls. So his plate is full. And Miguel is in school and he's struggling because he doesn't speak English very well at all, even though he's been here a little bit over a year now. He still hasn't caught on to understanding what a lot of the words mean. So the teachers, they're trying to get in touch with Hector to get him to come to the school so they can talk to him about that. And the teachers in this neighborhood, they know that they have a lot of kids that are going to school that are migrants that are not here legally. But that's not their concern. Their only concern is trying to get Hector and Miguel the best opportunity educationally wise as they can. So they finally convinced Hector to go down to the school. And he told me when he was at the school one day, he was talking to the teachers, but they had this SRO that was in the hallway. That's one of those, like they had them police officers that work the schools and stuff like that. So they had an SRO in the school. And he said it scared him to death. Scared him to death. He said he went on in and he sat down and talked to the teacher, but he said he couldn't focus on anything that she was saying because he was worried that this SRO was going to come in there and put handcuffs on him and Hector, or either call ICE and him and Miguel, and call and have them come in there and pick them up. Scared. He was scared to death. He couldn't focus on nothing. And then he said that he remembered telling the teacher, okay, we'll work on it, but then he left. And he did not send Miguel back to that school for months. It wasn't until his teacher came looking for him and found him in that neighborhood that he was at with these the workers and asked him why had Miguel not been back to school. And she understood a little bit. He told me this teacher understood what was going on. So she told him. He said she didn't even know what his concerns were because he didn't tell her. But he said she told him, she said, look, the police is there to make sure that the school is safe, not to arrest you, not to do any of that. And that put him at ease, and so he sent Miguel back to school. He sent him back to school. So time is going on, and everything is fine as far as, when I say fine, I'm talking about as far as illegally and how they're moving and getting down, right? So Miguel, he's doing better in school. He's learning to speak a little English. It's very broken, you know what I'm saying, Hector said. But at the end of the day, he's learning. He can understand words. He might not be able to say the words, but he can understand them. So he's learning. He's always been smart. He's learning. And now you got Hector. He's got put in a position because the ICE had raided a lot of the houses and a lot of the areas where some of the cartel members had worked and lived. And a lot of the people that used to be over Hector, they were in jail now and facing deportation. So the people at the top, some of the people at the top, not the very top, they get in touch with Hector and they tell him until they get some more people over here, they're going to need him to do more. And he's going to make more money, of course, but they're going to need him to do more. And let me explain something to you how that works. It's almost like a corporation. It's almost like a corporation. It doesn't matter if somebody gets deported or goes to jail or even gets killed for that matter. They have unlimited amounts of people that they can bring over that are willing to replace them just because they want to have a better life. And this is the opportunity, this is the way that it's being afforded to them to get involved in illegal activity. And the people at the very top are getting super duper uber rich. And the wealth is being spread around, but the people at the top, their business, the cartel heads, their business is trafficking in adult stuff. You know what I'm talking about. Drugs, gambling, labor, all kinds of, and anything that's illegal. And they're with it. And they're getting paid. And now Hector is moving up. And when I say moving up, he's moving up fast. He's moving up fast and he's making way more money than he could ever imagine. And he starts to find out some things about the cartel that he's been working for. And the stuff that he finds out is going to challenge him to make a choice. That's what he told me. He said, because when he found out what he found out, and I'm not going to tell you what he found out until the next episode. You're going to have to come back and check it out. But when he found out what he found out, it changed everything for him. It changed everything for him. And it sent his life in another direction now. You might think you know what I'm talking about, but you're not going to know for sure until you come back and listen to this next episode, okay? This has been another episode of Doing Time with Joe. I'm your host, Joe Baker, and I say peace, y'all.
I've been trying to breathe underwater.